Welcome to Bible Doctrine 2 and Theology 2. In this lesson, we're going to study the Preincarnate Christ in chapter 40 of Ryrie, which is an important aspect of the doctrine of Christ to prove his deity. This is a battlefield. C.S. Lewis in Mere Christianity argued for the deity of Christ by saying that when Jesus claimed to be God, he was either a lunatic, liar, or Lord. He either believed he was God, but he was a lunatic, or he was lying, or he was actually Lord, who he claimed to be. Bart Ehrman, who is a very well-known agnostic atheist, the chairman of Department of Religion at UNC, said, let's add another L to lunatic, liar, Lord. Let's add the L in legend. So I write about this in this blog post. Ehrman argues that only John, that is the writer of the Gospel of John, has Jesus claiming to be the Son of God. So Bart Ehrman's argument basically is because John wrote late and has many references to the deity of Christ, and Matthew, Mark, and Luke, who wrote early, do not, that the only reason John is referring to the deity of Christ is because the legends of Jesus' deity had time to develop, to be created by the early church, and then to infiltrate the gospel. So what I do, I go to two references, Mark 2, 1 to 12, where Jesus forgave the paralytic of his sins, healed him, and then forgave of his paraplegic and forgave his sins. The Pharisees ask, why does this man speak blasphemies? Who can forgive sins but only God? That's correct. That was the point. Only God can forgive sins. And then the other reference is in Mark 14, 62 to 63. This is at the trial of Jesus, when the high priest asked Jesus, "Are you the Christ, the Son of the Blessed One?" Jesus answered, "I am." And John D. Grasmick in Bible Knowledge Commentary says that title, Blessed One, was a Jewish substitute for God. So the Jews are asking, are you claiming to be God? And he said, I am. Sounds very familiar to the Gospel of John's many I ams in the Gospel of John. I am the light of the world. I am the bread of life. I am the resurrection. So these claims by Bart Ehrman are unfounded and really easily answered. So in Ryrie's book, in chapter 40, on page 273, he makes this statement that sometimes is a little puzzling to some. The preexistence of Christ is not synonymous with the eternality of Christ. And that's true, because there are heretics who believed that Jesus preexisted before his birth because he was created by God the Father, but they deny the eternality of Christ, therefore they deny the deity of Christ. And Ryrie talks about one of those heretics, Arius, in the 400s. But we have modern heretics as well, Arian-like cults in the Jehovah's Witnesses, who, for one verse, just to give one verse as an example, misinterpret John 1:18, which says Jesus is the only begotten Son of God. Here's what they write in the Watchtower produced book, Should You Believe the Trinity? Which their answer is no. But here's what they write. When one considers that Jesus was not the only Spirit Son of God created in heaven, it becomes evident why the term only begotten Son was used in this case. So what's their argument? That there were other spirit beings created along with Jesus. He was begotten, just like a father would begot a son, would birth a son. So God the Father birthed Jesus and he came into existence. So just like Arian and the 400s, the Jehovah's Witnesses, similarly believe in the pre-existence of Christ, but not the eternality of Christ. So Jesus affirmed many times in the Gospels his deity, his equality with God. John 10:30, I, the Father and I are one. That is one in essence. You have that Micah 5:2 prophecy that Ryrie refers to, that this one from eternity would be born in Bethlehem. Of course, that was fulfilled in the birth of Jesus. But the one who was born, took a body, was eternal. That's the prophecy of Micah 5:2. And then Jesus makes another claim in John 8:58 when he says, before Abraham was, I am. Not I was. There was a time when I was prior to Abraham, but I am. I am eternal. And so there was another claim of deity. John 1:1 plainly states that Christ is God by John, the author of the gospel. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. That word with implies a relationship. There was this eternal relationship between the Father and the Son, and the Word was God. That's a clear statement of the deity of Christ from eternity past. And then we have some epistles. We refer to Old Testament prophecy, Micah 5:2. We refer to a few of the references that Ryrie gives in the Gospels of Jesus claiming to be God. But you also have epistles. And two here that I'd like to refer to, Colossians 2:9. Colossians 2:9 says, this is Paul writing, for in Christ dwells all the fullness of the Godhead or deity bodily. So there's that union in Christ of deity and humanity, two natures in one person, the divine nature, the human nature apart from sin. And so Paul in Colossians is battling the beginning of the Colossian heresy, which not only denied the humanity of Jesus, he was only a ghost-like being, but they denied his deity. So in this one verse, Paul refutes both false teachings in that Colossian heresy, that it was early Gnosticism, which equated anything physical or material with evil. So they had to deny the humanity of Jesus. But Paul refutes it. The deity was dwelling in fullness in Jesus' body. And then you have the great passage in Philippians 2. Philippians 2, Paul's not necessarily correcting heresy. He's correcting bad attitudes in some of the members. They were proud, and he actually mentions two of them in chapter 4, verse 2. I beseech Euodias and I beseech Syntyche that they be of the same mind in the Lord. And so prior to that, chapter 2, verse 5, he was getting ready for that actual public rebuke when he wrote Philippians 2:5, let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus. We don't know what these two members were squabbling about. They were just out of fellowship. They were in pride, refusing to be reconciled. So who's the example that Paul uses? The Son of God. So he writes in Philippians 2, verse 6, referring to Christ, who being in the form, that's an important word, it means essence, who being in the form or essence of God, did not think that was something he had to cling to because he automatically was God. But emptied himself, not of deity. This emptying is not subtraction, because let's read on. but he emptied himself and took. So whatever this emptying is, it's not because he subtracted some of his attributes. No. He added humanity to deity. As the verse says, and took upon him the form, the same word for essence. He was God in essence from eternity past. Then he added to that essence the essence of humanity. And Paul goes on to say, and was made in the likeness of men, in verse 8, and being found in fashion as a man. Look at this. He humbled himself and became obedient unto death, even the death of the cross. God, the God-man, humbled himself to become man. But not just to become man, become a servant. And his greatest act of service was dying on the cross. If Jesus humbled himself, what is Paul saying to Euodias and Syntyche? Humble yourself. Have this same mind, this same attitude. What's interesting also is that Colossians and Philippians were written about the same time as Mark. So not only did Mark say Jesus was God by quoting what Jesus said early, but so did Paul in Colossians, Philippians agree with Mark that legend did not produce the teaching of the deity of Christ when John was written, the gospel around 90. No, in the early 30s. There's plenty of evidence that Jesus was God, and that teaching is prevalent. Ryrie also refers to the angel of the Lord in the Old Testament, which is a pre-incarnate appearing of Christ. Angel in the Old Testament and New Testament means messenger. And so here's this pre-incarnate appearance of Christ delivering God's messages. So why is the angel of the Lord not in the New Testament? Because the pre-incarnate Christ became the incarnate Christ. So there are no more references to the angel of the Lord in the New Testament because Jesus is now in a human body. So that's a little bit of the pre-incarnate Christ, and we're going to look at Christ in his incarnation next.